would also need a small microphone here. Yeah, thank you. And in that, I would just remind all of us that we have only 1 hour, so we will be respectful in our time, that we try to be concrete and constructive, and not to go so much into making speeches, but rather points. So if you don't feel in the audience comfortable coming here, you can also still make the comments sitting where you are, and you can still use the microphone there, ask questions or remarks and comments. So, but what I would like to do is to start with a small story. It's the story of sunglasses. And so, once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was this community or country where everybody was born with blue sunglasses. So they saw everything, you know, as we saw, but it was all blue. The tables were blue, the chairs were blue, the flowers, the sun, everything was blue. So, but it was quite okay because they all understand each other and they all agreed on those things. And not far away from that place, there was another community where people were born with yellow sunglasses. So also they saw everything as we do, but it was all yellow. The flowers, the sun, the chairs, the grass. And since those two communities were not so far away from each other, it happened that they met. And of course there were certain misunderstandings because suddenly they weren't agreeing on anything, because one people said it was blue, the other said it was yellow. So it created some kind of difficulties. But then there was one man who was rather smart from the blue sunglasses community. And he went and he got himself a pair of yellow sunglasses. And he spent several years learning many things, getting smarter. And when he returned home, the land of blue sunglasses, he was welcomed as an expert. And he gave lots of talks with people, with rooms full of people, telling how that other community is green. So this story to me has different meanings because it shows the problems or the difficulties we can have with our different sunglasses, our different values, our different knowledge, our different perspectives, that we might not understand each other, but at the same time, when we bring together two things, new knowledge can emerge. So I would like to direct my first questions to Leon and Kadi. So from you, Leon, I would like to ask, using this concept of sunglasses or different perspectives, you also mentioned that yesterday, that we have our own truths and our own knowledge sometimes. How can we deal with these different colors that we have? How can we even come to the point that we realize that we have those sunglasses, or wanting to know that the others have those too? And then later on, maybe Kadi, because probably in that sense you're working with the whole rainbow of colors. Where do you see the challenges and also the common working points there, but which benefits your work?
Oh, thank you, Kadri. Well, I was just thinking as you were speaking with that story that I doubt that people born with blue sunglasses on would have a word for blue. They wouldn't know that. It would just be something, that would be the world, yeah? In my job, it's my role to introduce my students, and subsequently they teach their pupils about a range of ways of looking at the world. And part of doing that involves getting introduced to new concepts. I mentioned the constraints of language yesterday, where English talks about things as objects. We have this problem of reification, whereas in Chinese and other languages, they're less attached to this idea that a thing exists. They're much more at home with an idea that things come into being and they pass out of being, and that's okay. That's a part of a cycle. So I think introducing different ways of thinking can be done with an introduction to language, but simply just giving space to the not just the possibility that there are other ways of looking at things, but seeing that it's okay. Because again, in the West, we're very wedded to this idea of truth. You know, we see, if something is the case, it becomes unthinkable that that thing could at the same time be not the case. This is the foundation stone of Western logic. But in Indian philosophies, a thing might exist and not exist at the same time, and that's not a problem. And that does take some getting used to. But to be not threatened by that, that's the crucial thing. Not threatened by difference, but actually find difference funny is a good start, and then interesting is the next step, and valuable is the step after that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I probably am agreeing a little bit that the people with blue sunglasses wouldn't probably have that word of blue, or nobody else would ever understand what it is. Language determines a lot, like Eskimos have 100 words for snow that nobody who wouldn't ever have seen snow would even come to think of. I would say that one of the participants from here, I don't know if Pep is still here, who uses this a lot. It doesn't matter what color the cat is as long as it catches the mice. It doesn't really matter what is the color of the sun. We don't have to agree on that. As long as we agree on the meaning of it, we understand why it's there, and we treat it with the same respect. And in my everyday job, that's pretty much the same case. People see things differently. I treat waste, I work with people to deal with waste that people have put there, or that has ended up in a place that somehow was a result of human behavior. And it doesn't matter what the exact reason for this was. It doesn't matter how it ended up there, who was to blame. There's really no difference in how we see the process that brought us to the place where the facts now are the same, that there's a problem. It doesn't matter what color it is. It still requires a solution. So the ways that brought you to this problem can be different, but the solutions can now be worked out together, and the differences that we have can now start to build on synergies that kind of enrich both of these communities, or all of our communities really, when we look at the world perspective.
Riinu would like to reply on that.
It's a very interesting question. I really like to comment also. I guess it's not really about the colors, the story. At least for me, it's not. It's about how two completely different cultures would even start to understand each other, because the bases are so different. And what I would like to answer to this is that when something is so not understandable because it's on the basic level very, very different, then I would suggest different techniques than mental analysis. I think also in academic world it's very popular to say that you get information through mental analysis and this is the only way to get facts. When a child goes to a horse and connects spiritually to a horse, she or he doesn't need to know how tall the horse is and how he breathes and what he eats and so on. The connection is there intuitively. And sometimes you need to go that level of intuition and consciousness to actually connect to something that you cannot understand mentally. So I would suggest that in sustainable development, we also need to bring into education these levels of collecting information and relating to other species and people, even if it's not very popular in academic world.
Yeah, so from here, I would go to another question. You want to comment as well?
I liked very much Leon's sentence. You said not to be afraid of differences. I got really inspired last week when I visited Arjen's blog, and there was a small video and you asked from your students to define what is civic ecology. And you got 25 different answers to that question. It means there was 25 different definitions, and no one from them these was wrong. All these answers were right answers. But in our educational system, here in Estonia, I feel very much that we are looking for right answers. Even here in this conference, we are discussing about what it is this ESD, what it is the sustainable development, what is the definition of sustainability. And I think if we don't have these definitions for ourselves, what does it mean for me? This was what Arjen students told. Civic ecology means for me, and there goes the definition. I think everyone here in this audience should think about it. What does sustainability or sustainable development mean? What does it mean for me, from my point of view, from my place? And I'm sure we got there very different answers, and all these answers, I'm sure they are right answers. There is no wrong answer for that question. And after this conference, I think you should think and write down, what does sustainable development mean for you? Mm-hmm. What I think it's if we want to make a difference, then we have to let this to create a meaning for ourselves. What we mean after that? If we just learn it, sustainable development is system of this and that. It doesn't mean for me anything. And then from this attitude, I can't make a difference. I can't make it happen when it doesn't mean for me something, anything. Do you comment, Leon?
I'd like to respond to your suggestion. I don't think that a valuing of diversity and a celebration of diversity and difference necessarily ends up in saying, oh, well, everybody's right and therefore nobody's right. I think that that's seriously mistaken. As I started with my talk yesterday, there are real differences between cats and goldfish. There is a real difference between kindness and cruelty. And I think that what we need to seek in our many different ways is a path of kindness, which is and you can only be kind if you understand something. Yeah? You cannot be kind to a goldfish if you think mistakenly that it's a cat. Yeah? So applying that to the world and to each other, you know, you cannot be kind to a stream if you think that the pretty colours that you make pouring petrol into the stream are improving it. Yeah, you've got a very odd understanding of what is good about a stream if you think it's just the pretty colours of the petrol you've put in it. Yeah, you don't understand that the stream is home for fish and frogs and invertebrates. Yeah, does that make sense? There's a right way of doing this, or there are many right ways, and there are some really seriously wrong ways of going about things.
So maybe I can direct sort of this question a little bit towards Arjen, because he was talking about it yesterday. So my question is actually, we're talking about greenwashing here, companies sort of misusing sustainability. So I'm asking how should relate to companies, or how our connection with them should be? How should we accept or deal with this kind of sort of steps towards sustainability, but are they not?
Well, it might be good to stick with the lenses and the glasses. It connects with this in a way, because in some ways you can ask the question, whose lenses am I wearing? Are those my own lenses? Do they come from a place? Do they come from my culture? Do they come from some connection? Or are these lenses that have been shaped by other forces, such as the neoliberal forces that make us see the world in a particular way, as an opportunity to buy something, or to want to have things, or to have material values? That's a particular lens that is becoming a globalized lens that we are all starting to wear across the globe. And in some ways, we don't even realize that we're wearing that lens of being a materialistic person that needs to help accelerate the economy and thereby accelerate unsustainability. So becoming aware of, in some ways, we have voluntary lenses and involuntary lenses. And to become aware of that and to become more critical of that and to interrogate that is, I think, a very important step to recognize that this is, in some ways, we are being manipulated to start wearing lenses that we may not so maybe we are very comfortable with it, but it's a very short-term way of being comfortable that won't be prolonged very long. So that's one way, critical thinking, becoming aware of the lenses that we are wearing and beginning to start questioning and maybe taking more control of what we are wearing. Ourselves have a more sense of autonomy and self-determination and the possibility to determine our own future, because that possibility is in some ways being minimized by our connections with, for instance, data and the World Wide Web, where our information that we share and the communication that we engage in is being mined by companies who know kind of what we like and what we prefer and what we don't like, and based on that they will feed us things that will anticipate, in a way, the future that they want us to have, not the future that we want to have. And we start conforming to that in our behavior, and we actually, by doing that, our possibilities for our future are limited as a result of that.
The collecting things and experiences are still in the same lens. Sort of what Leon was referring to. So
that's one way of looking at the lenses. The other way is Maslow. I think in Maslow, I'm not sure if the same Maslow, but he once said, if your only tool is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. And that is also something that can be dangerous. I mean, the way we look at science, for instance, and we've talked a little bit about it this morning. If you have a particular view of what constitutes science, and we look for tools and methods and even indicators and benchmarks, and we are so gung-ho on the tool and the mechanism, and as a result we start trying to conform reality to the tool, where it's actually the way we see the world is driven by the tools that we have designed, then we actually distort reality in possibly a very unhealthy way. So lenses can also be blinding insights, and we have to, in that sense, also be able to take them off.
And where does education come in here? How can we do that? Like, how to teach to work with your lenses, take them off, put them on?
I think one of it is that if you have a group of people, and there will be inevitable diversity, we don't, even if we all wear blue glasses, we don't see the world the same way. And I think it's very important that we articulate what we see, what we feel, what we think, how we interpret situations. And as a result of that, you will find that people are not exactly the same in how they interpret their relationship with the world, or with, it can be simple things, how people think about what the cell phone does to their everyday lives. People have different ideas about this. And in that conversation, you become aware that your way of seeing the world is not the exact same way of somebody else's way of seeing the world. And in some ways, somebody else's way of seeing the world might make more sense than your way of seeing the world. And as a result of that, this is very, a lot of us who are in education will know the kinds of dissonance, the kind of disruptions that causes. Being exposed to different ways of thinking makes you rethink how you think. And that is the beginning of learning. And that's why it's so good to have people who are not thinking in the same way in a situation, and that people who think alike learn less from each other than people who think differently. That's I think quite true. Yeah. You're more likely to learn from somebody who thinks not like you than from somebody who thinks the same way you do. You may be more comfortable with that person, but if the purpose is learning and becoming more creative, then you need to seek out the yellow and the purple and recognize at the same time that we don't all, if it's only our lenses that are different, but all the other things we share, and there are probably lots of other things that are different too, but there's also a lot in common, which you need to be able to utilize diversity. There needs to be some commonality, some social cohesion. If that's not there, it may be problematic to take advantage.
There is a question, comment from the very back.
Yes, I have a comment. I'd like to follow on from what Arjen was saying about different spectacles. I think the spectacle analogy is really, really quite...
Do I need this?
Yes.
Thank you.
From Scotland.
I won't shout. Yeah, just to follow on from Arjen's point about the spectacles, or rather the spectacles question in general. And of course, thinking about spectacles makes us think about what knowledge is, how we can know certain things, and perhaps even more importantly, how do we know what we don't know, and what is it that we need to know in order to begin to even think about what sustainability is. And so, of course, this leads us into different ways of knowing, and how can we begin to ask certain questions when we might not even know how to ask those questions. So I'd like to, Leon, you have a dog. Yeah, would you play a game with me just now? I have a dog also. If your dog and my dog went for a walk together, what sort of things would they be talking about in terms of sustainability? Over to you.
You want an answer? Well, they wouldn't. They have no language. Well, they have a very limited sort of language. They'd be much more interested in sniffing each other's bottoms and then running away. That would be...
But in some ways, the dogs, they're in many ways smarter than we are. I mean, we are the only species on the planet who being fully aware of that we are kind of destroying the planet, and the only ones capable to do so. So, in some ways, we're not the most intelligent species, maybe the dumbest.
Well, we might be. I mean, we're the only species that knowingly picks up after other animals doing their toilet as well. But that's...
But in a plastic bag.
In a plastic bag, so it's
Why plastic?
I'd actually like to pick up...
There's Riinu who would like to also respond to that.
Can I just a tiny weeny thing about what you said about learning from diverse and different peoples? I think it's a fantastic point. Could you wave now if you're involved in either intensive agriculture or the petrochemical industry or banking? Anybody?
Depends what you mean involvement.
Well, involved like that's your day job.
Well, if you ate the pork at lunch, you are involved in intensive
yes, you
agriculture.
are involved, but we're all perhaps wearing similar spectacles, and I think it's such an important point you make. Maybe we need someone in here whose job it is to raise pigs intensively. There's fantastic questions on the board. Where did our food come from? I don't know. I hope it was all nice and sustainable. I don't know. But wouldn't it be great to hear from a factory farmer here and hear their perspective? That would
we'll come back to that question. I will give now the floor to Riinu.
I wanted to bring the discussion about lenses back to the context of school and education. I personally feel that we, as many generations now in this hall are, we actually have a very different lenses considering school than our children have. It seems to me that for us, school as an institution might be the how you said, the technique that we are trying to put everything else in, the method, the tool. And for our kids, that not might be the case at all. At least I see from my kids, they are 6 and 8 now, and I seriously doubt that they need school as an institution for their inner curiosity to really blossom and to learn. So for me, there's also the conflict of the lenses of our generation who actually has the background as we have. We have been to school in very, very different times. These are our paradigms that we carry inside us, and we might not even recognize them. We have already lenses different than our children have and their needs. Maybe people in this audience already have the green ones, the middle ones, but still not the same as our children have.
Kadi wanted to respond.
Yeah, is anybody here familiar with the concept a humble inquiry? How to ask instead of telling. It's a great book. I suggest you look it up. It's not long, and it really gives you ideas how to start asking instead of telling, how to not start underestimating people who are against you, because you might start telling them things they already know. By doing that, you might start making them feel that, why do you think I didn't already know that? And while the other person is talking, you're not even listening to them. Maybe they do have something smart to say. So while from the audience you said that we don't even know what to ask, well, there are open and closed questions. And the magic with open questions is that when you ask, you don't know what the answer is, and the responder might not even know what the answer is either. But the trick is that you don't always need to know the answer. This is where the dialogue starts. And this is where the interesting part starts to evolve. And this is where you go into a dialogue. You're not telling each other stories that you already know, but you really want your conversation to create new value. So when people who have different lenses, I absolutely agree with you. We are teaching people to think in a new way by telling them how we've done it. We don't even know how that new way is, so kind of we don't even know what color our lenses are. So it's easier not to even ask what is the color of your lenses, but tell me what you see, tell me what you feel, and try to experience the same.
Arjen, you want to?
No, I just support that. I want to pick up on the inner curiosity of children. I think that's very, very important, and I think regardless of school, there is that inner curiosity. One concern, and that may be different in different parts of the world, but in some parts of the world, young people, even the age of your children, spend up to 80%, sometimes even more, of their waking hours looking at digital technology. And there are some schools in Holland, we have Steve Jobs schools and iPad schools, where the teacher starts the classroom and says, get out your tablets or get out your smartphones and go to this site, and there will be a quiz, questions. And the next school, this was on the news the other day, has a completely different policy where they say you can bring your tablet and your phone, but they go in the locker and you can take them out after school. We're not using them in the school because we feel the interaction, and during breaks kids need to talk to each other. There needs to be a social environment, there needs to be interaction in the classroom. And the other school says, no, we need to have young people be prepared for the future, and the future is a digital one, and they need to be able to use their smartphones, and it's just the new way of looking at the world. And in some ways, I think this is a question, let's ask a question rather than telling, but the question is, to what extent does that take away young people's curiosity and their possibilities to connect with people and places if they are inundated in these technologies where scientists, I told some people the other day that sound engineers at Stanford University spend a lot of research figuring out what kind of bell tone or what kind of WhatsApp tone will hit people in such a way that they will immediately want to check their phones. So they have a lot of psychology, and they investigate this, they test it, and then they come up with that little ding for WhatsApp, where people perk up and they want to check it. And there's a new science called captology. It's the science of captivating people's attention, and it wants you to go back to your phone, and it wants young people to do that too. And the data that goes in and out and that is being mined. I find that something that we do not talk much about, and we haven't talked much about it at this conference either. It's almost like the elephant in the room. But I think we need to pay a little more attention to what is happening to meaning making and connecting to people and places in the digital age, which is not to say that we need to dismiss the technology. It's going to be there, but we do need to think more about how is it affecting our inner curiosity, our possibilities to connect, etc.
Yeah, we have Rea there. What's to ask? And there's a lady there.
Okay. Yes, Arjen, you brought up an interesting question, a little bit controversial of technology, and especially educational technology, because we can see people being pro and con. But how would you comment, or what is your personal opinion on educational technology? Because, for instance, teachers or grandparents are sharing stories where 2 or 3 year old child is looking at a bird through the window and passing the finger through the glass to have a second scene, so to say. Is it funny or is it a problem? And what do you think of that?
Well, of course, it has to do with balance, and I think these technologies are in some ways highly addictive because they're so well designed. They offer lots of good possibilities, but to refer to to think about the side effects and to also look at the energy and creativity that science puts into and engineers put into advancing these technologies and making them better all the time, or different, so that at least people want to get the newest version all the time. If that energy could be maybe channeled away from, say, convenience and making purchasing easier towards becoming more sustainable, like making carpooling easier, or finding out where the food comes from. If you could quickly scan the barcode in the store and you would see, this is pork that comes from this farm, and this is pork, it's more expensive, but it comes from this farm. Which are you more comfortable with? In that sense, if the technology can help advance some of these relationships, local, global, making that more visible, more tangible, then I think there's potential. But at the same time, we know of this reversed hierarchy. I think I talked about it the other day, where feeding the phone has become more important than feeding the children in some of the poorest parts of Africa. That is kind of sad to see that happen, that Maslow's needs hierarchies tipped over, first the phone, then food and shelter. So we have to be mindful of that, and I think we cannot ban the technology, but we must find better ways to engage with it, and maybe there need to be, I personally, if I have to choose, I would choose the school that says, don't have the phone, don't have the tablets. They will be there for you at 5 o'clock or at 4 o'clock. But in school, we're not going to use the technology other than maybe your calculator. But, you know, the calculator is now a smart calculator.
I'm first going to, Kadi wants to answer, and then there's the question from there.
Yeah, I'm seeing here, like, maybe we could just hire the guys who are software developers in Apple to start developing educational programs in outdoors, so that to make nature just as interesting for kids as the iPads are. But I wouldn't underestimate here the subject that we're dealing here with is nature and the actual life around us. The technology is doing well. I don't think that this is the major problem that we need to deal with. Right now it's the technology that's developing really well. There might be something that we don't know yet that's going to be also very interesting, and it's going to be taking your mind off other things. So it's rather about how to maintain the interest in nature and the real life around us, not so much how to make iPads less interesting, because that's what we'll never be able to do. But why don't I want to get an update of what's happened to that bird on that tree that's beside my house every day? I don't know anything about it. I don't even know to ask. So the more I would know, the better that information would come to me. Well, maybe the iPad developer could come and help me out with that. How do I become more interested in that bird beside my house, or want to know what my dogs would be talking about when they went out for a walk? Because they do have some things. Maybe it's just to know, is it that time? Can we not? And then, maybe that's the only conversation, but then I'd know about that. Then I would know whether I should let my dog out or not, etc., things like that.
Okay. You want to respond quickly to...
Yeah,
just very quick, then we will take the answer.
Because I would like to say that I think this is about the environment where children is growing up. It depends what does he or she, what does the child see around us. Is there a nature? Is there a birds? Is there a trees? Or there are only technology around him or her? It has a very deep meaning for him for the future, that he or she takes this environment with her when he grows up, and this is a very critical point, to bring children outside to the nature, to show what the bird is. I believe all children are very interested about this, about the nature, about the environment around them. We just need to put them into that environment.
And there is the
okay.
question from the lady before. Sorry, you have to wait. There was a lady before. Lots of exercise for our technical help.
I would just like to say that I think we ought to be really careful when we start talking about saying, we should exclude technology or we should include technology, especially for people of our generation. Because the children are growing up with this. There is a chance that there are other synergies. I think you were kind of mentioning that with, maybe getting the developers involved. There are possibilities that we don't even know about. There are ways of, just look at the costs that have plummeted because we've got email, because we've got Skype, and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that, we shouldn't have places where technology is not there, but we need to be including the younger generation very much in this conversation, because they have they have more knowledge probably than certainly I would.
I think balance, is the key word again. I think costs have plummeted. I think we need to interrogate that. If you look at the data centers that they're building in the north of Sweden and all the heat that is generated, it contributes a lot to global warming. We always think that it reduces cost and energy, but it doesn't. And that we print less. We think that we do, but we print as much as we ever did. In that sense, But I do think it is potential for intergenerational learning. It does provide possibilities, but at the moment, what I see, it goes so fast, these developments, that we haven't really caught up with them, and we need to start reflecting more on what is it doing to us. If I look at young people today, or if I look at people in the train in the Netherlands, in my time, and I don't want to romanticize the past, but we were looking outside the window, and you see the landscape glide by, and you started to reflect, you had deeper thoughts. But now people in the train, they don't look outside, they don't have deep thoughts, they're always checking their mail, and I'm guilty too. I'm constantly aware of it being there. Children biking to school in Holland, we did a little experiment with this. If you ask them to draw a map of their school route and identify all the landmarks they see on the way, you get maps that are geographically not very accurate. Maybe that's not so a big problem, but they're not very accurate, and they're not very rich, as if they don't see what is on the way. Why is it? Because they have things in their ear, they will bike even with their phone in their other hand. They don't see the landscape, the place of which they are part. Now you ask their parents to draw a map of the route they biked 35 years ago to school, and you get very accurate maps, very rich in detail. Why? Because they were gliding through the landscape with nothing but the landscape. And they reflected, they had deep thoughts, they weren't continuously distracted. They had the possibility to reflect and to have these deeper meanings.
Apparently, that's how Harry Potter was created, when J.K. Rowling was riding on a train looking in the distance.
Well, what I find hopeful, the other day I was in I think it was Canada or the US, where there was a hotel and it said, guaranteed no connectivity or your money back. Which I thought, now that's interesting. There's maybe a tipping point in. It used to be every hotel wanted to provide access to the web, and if you didn't do that, you were like a bad hotel. So now we have new hotels where they're saying, guaranteed no connectivity or your money back. If you are with us, you are with us. If you are here in this place, you are here and not somewhere else.
Yeah, apparently there are already cafes that say no Wi-Fi, talk to each other. But there's a question from the back.
I hope, Arjen, I don't spoil your party here, but I really agree with what the lady over there just said. These are kids, they have the gears, they have the knowledge, they have the capacity. So it's unavoidable that they use them. And I do this field work each year in Crete, which is a good place to be in the beginning of June with students. And I do historical and educational field work over there for years. And last year, for the very first time, my science colleague came with me, and we worked together in a program, last year's program at Marnix. It's called World, Science and Technology. I do the world, he does the science and technology, and we cooperate. And he asked me, can I bring 10 mini iPads with me with Wi-Fi connection all over Crete? And I was very, very reluctant to the idea, because I thought, well, here will these students walk around and don't see anything of Knossos and all the other beautiful places at Crete. So I was very afraid this would happen, but it ended up as the most exciting, wonderful, interesting field week we ever had, because the combination that my colleague had, I didn't know whatsoever about all these iPad facilities that you can integrate in fieldwork activities. But for the students it was very meaningful, and when it was about the outcomes, what did they learn, what did they know more that they didn't know before, and so on, about history, about nature, about culture, and so on, it was the best ever. So I think we should be too afraid of using it. We should see how we can integrate it in an optimal way. You can't keep them away from them. I even won't be kept away from it myself. I was the guy that was on the email this morning during the conversation. I think let's find the best solutions to that. And I think there are pretty good examples going on around the world all over. So.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, however, that without the iPad, you could not have a very educational, interesting, inspiring time in Knossos in June with your students. But it could help certain things. But at the same time, it also is very tempting for those students to not be there, to connect with others elsewhere. We need to learn to live with this in a more responsible and in a better way. That's, I think, we're not going to ban the technology.
I don't think let's not be too pessimistic about it. When I was in high school and I didn't want to attend a lesson, I was running outside or playing a submarine game with the guy next to me, you know, or farmer milk and eggs. That was the game you do somewhere in the textbook that you are not allowed. Nowadays they might be somewhere else on the technical view, but basically it's the same. They don't want to attend the lesson, so they do something else. So let's make it more attractive in whatever way. Sorry.
I still think it's better to go out and play outside than to go to your...
I would comment, I attended this sustainable education program last year where we had participants from all ages, from beginning of 20s to no insult, more than 60, over 60. And when we had the course where we were talking about using IT tools and sustainable development, before even getting to trying out any of these tools, we had about 3-hour fight in our classroom about whether we should ever even allow any of those technical tools in this classroom. And that was such a huge fight without having any experience whatsoever. Only fear that there will be nobody participating, everybody in Facebooks, whatever. And then all of a sudden they realized there is no Facebook in this iPad. There is no games in this. There were only tools. And by the end of the 2-hour session that we had, everybody was just super extremely excited about what they had been able to do with this iPad. It wasn't about the iPad, it was about the content that they got, the work that they did. So it's just that the pad is a tool like any other, like a pencil and paper for drawing up things or writing down comments. But if you don't know how you're able to use it, if I could show my pad to this floor, to this paper, and then it realizes that this is paper and show me the whole life cycle, how this paper ended up here, wow. You know, it's not about the pad, it's about the knowledge that I'm able to transfer with this tool.
May I, just to end, because we talk a lot about the technology now, you probably want to go somewhere else, but I forgot to do my little promotional bit during my talk the other day. But at the World Environmental Education Congress, late June in Sweden, in Gothenburg, week 2015, some of you may have heard of it, there's one of the 11 themes is sense of place in the digital age, and it's exactly about the kinds of questions that we are talking about right now. If you haven't seen anything about the conference, go to the website weec2015.org and try to join if you haven't already. It should be an interesting, of course not as interesting as this conference, but we will try.
Unfortunately, time is running out, so all the wonderful, interesting topics we wanted to talk about, of course we cannot talk them all, but there's one thing I would like to sort of come back to. There's been a lot of talk about love and empathy and how education really should thrive from that. And at the same time, we have also talked about how we are just one group of people there, and there's also lots of other kinds of people with other kinds of classes, like the intensive farmers, a businessman. So I know that there was questions like, how do you actually teach love and empathy in a classroom? But my question would be, how do we teach that in a business meeting? Or like, how do we actually communicate our values or teach that to someone who is so different from us? So how do we go outside our ESD bubble?
I would maybe comment on that first. Being from an NGO that aims to engage organizations and businesses and governments, if you go to people who are very different from you, I'm there to clean up the world from waste, and then they are there to produce sugar water in plastic bottles. And it's even easier to teach them love than maybe somebody more close to you, because If you go and approach somebody who assumes that you probably hate them already, and then you show that you don't, you're actually open for sharing your passion with them, then being open and sharing and giving people credit that everybody is worth love and respect will reflect that back to you, and people respect being respected. People, and even and in that sector, I would even say they are more surprised that you're not throwing dirt at them. So that would be my experience from kind of teaching love is just sharing love.
Yeah, Riinu, you teach business school, so maybe you have some insight on that or ideas.
Danielle was talking this morning about the learning journeys, and if you really care about someone to learn new things and to develop spiritually and consciously and so on, then you need to understand where they are at this point of time in their learning journey, and all you can do is to support the next steps that they are taking. You can't really force anything. You can't approach with your concept in mind what you want to do. You have to listen and be there, be the companion on the journey of learning the best you can. But it's the responsibility of the person to really, if they want to take the steps or not.
What I see, the problem is even wider and more serious. It's not about how to involve people with the business area. Last week, I had a meeting in Tartu city government, together with almost all school principals from Tartu city. There was sitting around the table school headmasters, school directors, school principals, and after this meeting was over, we planned to the next meeting about the same topic, what actually was a festival of educational festival or something like that. And they wanted to put the next meeting on the same day that it is today. And every school director was agree, this is a good day, we can meet here. And I was then raising my hand and telling that, hello, there is an international educational conference. Are you, have you heard something about it? Are you planning to come here? No, let's okay, you can't come, let's find another day for that meeting. They were, I'm sure here is in this audience, here is no school directors from Tartu city. It's what I'm really concerned about, how to involve school principals to get involved with the environmental education. I was thinking this is the matter, this is the subject that they should concern about it, they should be interested about it, but no one. It's a problem for me.
Any thoughts?
Well, I think there are the heads of schools and universities that are strategically interested, but not intrinsically interested, and that does require a learning journey, as you said, and as Daniela said. And I think in the end, it's about bridging and bonding. Bridging to overcome differences, which requires bonding, putting yourself in the minds of the other, trying to see what you do have in common. If you don't wear the same glasses, you still have a lot in common. You all eat, you all drink, you all have maybe children or grandchildren. There's lots of things that you do share, and focus on that. But also don't organize the meetings between these different stakeholders in some sterile meeting place. Organize it at the sugar water, you called it. I don't think they like that. At the sugar water company, organize a meeting there. Get a tour of the factory. Put yourself in their minds. And then have the next meeting at your NGO and show them what work you're doing so that they get a sense of, oh. And when you meet, and don't introduce yourself. So I'm so-and-so, I work for the Act Now, or what's it called, Earth Now, or Do It Now, whatever.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. But instead, ask the person, talk to your neighbor from the sugar water company for a few minutes, get to know each other, and then ask the sugar water guy or woman to introduce you to the rest of the group, and then you introduce the sugar water person to the group. Now you have to put yourself in the mind of the other and actually represent that person to the whole group, and you want to do it right. So then you've already developed a relationship, bonding, and only when we can bond with each other we can bridge. So bridging and bonding would be my advice.
Leon, you want to add something? No. Any responses from the audience? There is someone. Oh yeah, on the back.
Hello. I'm wincing a little bit when I hear someone say, "How can we teach people how to love?" If I remember my professional humility aright, teaching is something about leading out what is already in place within. In the Findhorn community, one of the dialogues that we continue to engage with as a community, we have 30 businesses or more that work out of the community, and we have a community common ground that is a shared, negotiated social contract that we all aspire to sign up to and to live with in our behaviour and our empathic understanding and respect of each other. That provides a guide on a sort of daily basis and a reminder, for us as to what we are aspiring to be when we live with each other. And the businesses of the community also have their common ground too. And I think one of the other ways that they have differentiated between the more social contract of the community and the more business contact is actually to seek and see the similarities between the social forum that businesses engage with, both within the community and in the wider community, but also to break down the qualities of the universally assumed labels like love, to look at empathy, to look at what respect is, and to maybe make and draw statements out of that as to ways that people would like to aspire to behave towards each other within that particular forum. And they have found that that has been a useful guide. So if you like, it's almost like an ethical or a moral code. So that's one of the ways that the Findhorn community tackles the businesses and the business side of things.
Thank you. Anyone wants to reflect more on that?
I'd just like to respond very briefly to your misgivings around teaching people to love. I think that's a good, important point, well made. But I think that we do need to remember that a lot of the young people, the children that we are caring for, educating, are profoundly damaged. I mean, in extreme circumstances. You see a lot of this in Glasgow. Children who have suffered emotional, physical, sexual abuse from a very young age, and the most profoundly damaging impact on children is none of those, but actually neglect. That they've just been ignored, often because their parents or supposed carers are paying too much attention to various technologies or various addictive substances. And I think that the point I was making yesterday about that very old idea about education and teaching not being about adding stuff but stripping away, to what you referred to as drawing out what's already there. I think I share your confidence and your faith that people are basically good, and that we are born with a capacity to love and to feel for others. but that capacity is so damaged and debased to the point where it can actually be destroyed in some extreme circumstances. These circumstances, these are cases where really we do have to teach to love, and we do that exactly as you were talking. We model it. We show that we're not hateful, angry, vindictive. I think there's a lot of sense there, but I think we need to forgive ourselves a little bit for using language in slightly lazy ways sometimes, but the point there is so important.
There was one last comment from there, right?
I'm a leader from a Danish school, so there's one school leader here, and I think the question about who should be on this conference to change the world, it's really a big question. I'm not sure that it's the right people we have collected here. Maybe we miss more than school leaders, also decisions makers from private companies, from governments, from other places. They should be together with these people here and discuss how to stop the world, how to make things in another way.
Yeah, Riinu wants to respond.
Just one thought about this. With my experience, short experience in an eco-village where we tried to set up a sustainable school, and we found out that it's actually not possible to set up a sustainable school for children, but you have to put the child in the center, and then the sustainable education rolls out from there in a curiosity, and you never know what the result is. What I have learned, one of the things that I have learned in this process is learning is everywhere, every time, with anyone, which means that all grown-up people are involved in children's education, no matter what the position is, or are they teacher or not a teacher, are they parents or not a parent. If grown-ups understand the role that they have in children's life, that they could take a role of being a companion of the learning journey for every child, then it doesn't matter what position they have, they can already be there and support the sustainable development of children and of themselves, because it's also an inner growing process to understand that I am a grown-up, I can be support and companion for this little beautiful soul here. I don't need to be a teacher in the school or a headmaster for that.
I think that's a nice thought to wrap up, because our two guests need to catch their planes very soon. So maybe as a final thought to conclude what all you've been saying, what we started, and maybe just for all of us, is to say that every person that we meet knows something that we don't, and we can learn for every person that we meet, be it the big agriculture guy or a cleaning lady or whoever. And first of all, maybe we should looking about asking, not telling, so learning ourselves, not teaching. So maybe that's a good thought to take home. So thank you for discussing, all of you, and yeah, applause for all of us. Marek, you're taking over now, right?
Thank you for having us here. Thank you, Kalle. Yes, we'll do. läbitud tee pole kurnanud mu keha. Iga ta toll tõelist kogemust on täis. I heard this song this morning and it's exactly my feeling at this moment. I translate for our guests. The road that I took did not exhaust my body. Each inch of it is full of true experience. So I think from this conference, I'm quite full, I'm saturated, and this makes me happy. That's how it should be. That's why we had this event here. I'd like to wrap up with maybe just one comment or two. And the first one is that I really enjoyed how our keynote talks, but also what happened in parallel sessions, how these came together, how they were talking about very similar matters, although in different terms and using different examples, but still. And to look at these matters, we started with love, we started with emotions. A lot in the first talks was about emotions and love. And here at the end, we are again talking about love, emotions. And just how it relates to teaching. So, something Rea said at the end of her parallel session, that our teaching is good if it's understandable, simple, and empathic. And it might have been a bit lost in Timo's talk, but something he said, that the signs we pick up are easier, perhaps, or to make meaning in context. If it's aesthetic, if it's relevant, if it's value related or valuable. So the knowledge that we are talking about and the passing on some knowledge and passing on some understanding and wisdom, how it was put into contrast with knowledge at times. It's all about emotions in a way, beside this, hardcore scientific. Again, something relating to Rea. It's very interesting. Rea, in her first talk, told about natural scientists perhaps being too fact-centered and trying to be, there was this value-neutral word. And being a natural scientist, teaching in natural scientists, when I have been asked to define what do I teach and write it down sometimes in papers, the only thing I want to teach is values, attitudes, the way of thinking, that's all. And the matter is not so important for me. And it doesn't matter whether I teach conservation biology, which is value-laden, or I teach statistics. I do teach statistics so that it's value-laden, absolutely. So therefore, I'm really happy to have heard so much about the values here, and how it leads to kind of how we should deal with the matters in synergic and holistic way. Thank you, Herman, for being here. Andre, good. Have a nice trip home. Yes, please. Bye. And just this all leads to the understanding really of ecosystem, of community, how Timo put it, everything, the society around us. The other thing I really want to say stems from something that Natalia asked me the other day. She asked me, what did I expect from this conference and what should happen for me to be happy? And it kind of struck me because, honestly, before she asked, I had not even thought about that. And this relates to so much that has happened here. the teaching? Are you accepting the possibility that you don't know where you are going? The open-ended situations where you just create a setting and you don't know where it's all going to go. And that's all the conference is about. The conference is only as good as are the people attending the conference. So anything that happened in this conference was because of you. And if you are happy, you have a reason to be happy about yourself. If you're not happy, I'm sorry, look in the mirror. So I am happy. I had an interesting time. So I thank you all for that. Thank you for creating a good conference for us. There are, of course, some people I'd like to mention, and some people who facilitated this, at least again from my perspective, a good quality discussions. And I'd like to ask here the session chairs, the people who took up the nasty task to look at the clock and stop you talking when it was all so interesting. Liisa Puusepp, are you here? Rea Raus. Aitäh. Ja. Aitäh. Nii tore. You can start coming if you are here. Triin-Käpp, I know, has left yesterday. She was the value session. Erkki Peetsalu. Erkki, are you here still? He's left. Kai Klein, unfortunately, has left. Uku Visnapuu. He said he will leave, but I saw him not very long ago, but he has left. Ilga Saalite. Ilga, are you here? She has left. Susanne Zetterblom. Susanne, are you here? Again left. Tiina Elvisto. Tiina is here. Kadri, Kalle. Thank you. Nii tore. Kadri. Nii tore. And then there are people I have to mention. I will not invite you here, but because some of here are here, but some are not. And you know probably them all, but the organizing committee, I really want to mention Paula Lindroos, Ilga Saalite, Arjen Wals, Kaja Peterson, Kadri Kalle, Rea Raus, Ülle Kikas, Tiina Elvisto, please. And then people without whom this event would not be have happened. Had happened. I'm losing my language here, it's getting late. The technical organization, you cannot underestimate people running with microphones. That's what you see, people at the desk working with you, answering your questions. That's what you see, but all the effort that has happened before and maybe follows. The team led by Mereli Kivi. Mereli, are you here? Or the rest of the members of the team, please stand up and... So anyway, so this event is over. Once more, thanks, many thanks to the Environmental Board who organized the event and made it possible at all. So thank you all. Thank you very much for coming. And hopefully we meet again somewhere, sometime, in some conference perhaps. Thank you.